Hello everyone, we have a new game today against Mr. Call Me Skip, I guess. And we have the Sicilian Khan variation. Let's play knight c3, queen c7. Yeah, let's go for the most natural developing moves. So bishop d3, castles. Now black I believe had the principal choice, so knight c6 or b5. Yeah, but he's just playing normal development with bishop e7. Can I go f4 immediately? I think I can. I don't see really a reason why not. Let's do it. Now I believe we're about to reach a favorable version of the Scheveningen Sicilian for me, because my bishop and queen are very well coordinated. With the e5, I'm already kind of ready with the pawn push e5 on the next move. This is something we usually don't see in the other lines. So he plays knight d7. Now I will develop my bishop to d2. At some point I want to play rook a to e1 and eventually to break with e5. Now probably what black has to do is to delay the move castles for the time being, because the king would be very exposed there. So what they usually do is they first develop the queen side with moves like b5 and bishop to b7, maybe even rook c8. Sometimes the king also stays in the center of the board. This is also a possible scenario. b5. Now in this case, what a lot of people automatically do is play a move like a3, which is not a bad move, but I'm not so sure if in this position it's really, this move is a big threat. So losing a tempo on a move like a3 I think is not the best idea. What I really want to do is just to keep my development with rook e1, even though I must mention that there is another option here for white, which I saw in some maybe similar positions, maybe even this specific one, which is to play b4 followed by pawn to a4, which is a different plan completely. But now let me just kind of keep myself the option of doing such thing in other games, and for the time being I will just concentrate on my simple attacking plan with e5 and so on. Also a very useful move for white in such position is king to h1, just kind of getting the king out of this potentially dangerous diagonal. But for the time being, the move like queen b6 I can always cover with bishop e3, so perhaps I should not spend this tempo on king h1 right now. And that's an interesting position. It's basically it would seems like white has a very straightforward plan of pushing the pawn on e5, but black's position should not be underestimated. He's very solid, he's flexible with his king, so he might stay in the center, he might castle short, in some positions he might castle long. It wouldn't be so easy for me to attack. At the moment e5 is a threat. It's something that black has to take into account. What odd options does he have? So playing e5 is definitely not a good option, because then I will have this nice square for my knight on f5, putting pressure on his position. Perhaps he should consider playing a move like b4 right now. Okay, but he decided to play bishop to b7, which practically allowing me to play e5 with no kind of with ease, which I'm kind of wondering if I should just do it, or should I suspect something might be wrong. Perhaps his point is that after I play e5 he takes, I take, then he might play a move like bishop to c5, pinning my knight on this diagonal. and then he will take my knight on d4 with a check. It might be his point, even though even there I'm not really sure what's going on. I might also consider sacrificing one of my knights here or here in order to clear up the e-file against the bishop on e7. This is a very typical idea for the Sicilian defense, but I'm not really sure if this is something I want to do specifically in this position, because at the worst case black can always reinforce the defense of the bishop on e7 with a move like knight c5. Perhaps I should just make a useful move like king h1, keeping all of my options. Yeah, okay, let's play king h1. Basically saying that I have time, which might not be true. Maybe this move king h1 would turn out to be a very critical loss of time. But now, when black doesn't have this resource of taking on d4 with a check, e5 becoming a really serious threat. So I really think black should be very careful right now. One typical idea for black in order to face such threats is to play a move like h5, which might seem like an alien move, but the idea is to give this knight a square on g4 sometimes. So that's a possible idea to try to deal with white's threats. Another idea is once again to somehow play b4, chase the knight from the c3 square, and then trying to maybe push in the center with d5 himself. That's also an idea to consider. Okay, so he played g6. Now that's also an idea in some positions, but I'm really not sure if that's the right moment to make such a move. So he wants to take control over this square perhaps, so maybe now black threatens to play e5. Question is, why cannot I break with e5 like I wanted? Probably no particular reason. I think it's time to go with e5. There is no really no, I don't see any reason not to do it. All of my pieces are perfectly centralized and on perfect positions. This should be the right move. Now if black takes on e5, I have this f-file opened for my pieces. This is something to work with. If it does not take on e5, then I might take on d6. Let's suppose it just moves the knight somewhere. Then I might consider ideas like taking on d6 and sacrificing my knight on e6 once again in order to clear up this very dangerous battery of pieces against his king. So I think things are about to explode very soon in this position. Yeah, so he plays knight d5. So he decided not to take. But yeah, here I have some nice options. First thing which comes to mind is e takes d6, and then trying to get knight e6 coming. I also have some options of sacrificing on b5, with the idea to have some double attacks here, but probably it's a bit too soon for this kind of ideas. If I take on d6, is definitely going to take back with the queen, trying to cover the square on e6, that's for sure. Technically there is no threat at the moment, so I might even consider just keeping the tension in the position and just doing some other move. But that would be a bit slow, kind of. Yeah, I believe e takes d6 should be the way to go. I just double checking if I'm not missing some other promising options. I might also consider just taking on d5. Bishop takes d5. I'm sorry. And only then proceed with some actions. But this seems like the bishop on d5 only helps him to consolidate his position a bit. Okay, let's take on d6. Let's see what happens. Time is running a bit short, so I'll probably have to take a bit more intuitional decisions in the coming moves. Now, yeah, I'm betting on queen takes d6. I really don't believe he would take with the bishop. Yeah. So we have queen takes d6 on the board. Now the immediate move which comes to mind is knight e4, trying to centralize this knight. But that's a question whether this really achieves anything, because I'm blocking my e-file. Is f5 a possible move? That's really the kind of move I want to make, to sacrifice some material in order to break through the this e-file. I'm really not sure whether this is working, but let's go for f5. I feel like this is the principled move, but this is very concrete. So e takes f5 is just suicidal with this e-file being opened. Main question is what happens if he takes with the g-pawn. And then for sure I will sacrifice something on f5. Question is, what would it be? Would it be the bishop? Would it be the rook? That's some things to consider. My knight is a bit hanging on d4, so I hope nothing funny happens on this d-file, but at the moment I believe I'm covered, because if he takes on c3, I just take back and my knight is protected. Yeah, the big question is what happens after g takes f5. That's where I'm really not sure. Probably I'll take bishop takes f5 and hope for the best, even though I'm not outright threatening any big threats. So yeah, black is holding on quite solidly at the moment. As you can see, it's really not easy to break through black's defenses. I'm kind of wondering what does black is thinking about, because personally I don't see any good alternatives to the move g takes f5. If I'm allowed to open up the f-file without sacrificing anything, it would be quite lethal. Maybe he's considering pawn e5, but is it really an option, considering that this pawn on e5 would be so weak after knight f3? Okay, so my opponent is getting a bit low on time as well. Should be a good sign for me. Yeah, g takes f5. Yeah, now this is the planned move. I don't want to sacrifice my knight there because I need it in the attack. So let's just play it. We'll see what happens. And once again, not claiming that white is winning or anything. Black definitely has some defensive resources. His king is kind of flexible. For example, now he might consider playing long castles. just to run away from any danger. But that then white might argue that the king on c8 is also not very safe in a way, but it's definitely safer there than in a center, so there would be no immediate danger. Taking on f5, as you realize, I'm not even considering this move for black because I believe after knight takes f5 there is really nothing to calculate. It's quite clear that the knight on f5 with combination with my queen and the rook on the e file should be enough to win. What I also like about white's position, that from positional point of view, it didn't make any big concessions. So even if white's attack wouldn't go very well, yeah, bishop takes seems kind of obvious. If white's attack wouldn't go so well as he planned, he still has a very healthy position. So this is one thing that I wanted to say that black could try, but I kind of forgot about it. But I wanted also to say that I'm not too worried about it, because in the worst case I can just exchange off those bishops, and that's probably what I will do. I will change the bishops and go for this kind of position, which I still argue that white has the advantage, because black has no safe place for him on the entire board. In the center of the board he would get under some heavy pressure with my rooks. On the queen side his position is exposed by all of those pawn moves. So white's position should be quite pleasant right now. Once again, I didn't do any big concessions. I didn't sacrifice even anything. That's just a normal position with material equality when white holds quite a strong attack, so I would evaluate the position like a big advantage for white probably. But we shall see. Black is now down to 1.5 minutes. Can he pull a rabbit from his hat? Bishop d5. Okay, this is a clever defensive move. He doesn't want to, because he didn't want to take on e4, because then he will surrender this long diagonal. In this way he's perhaps trying to preserve the control over this diagonal, but it's a bit like a artificial defense. Now two moves which comes to mind are either knight f5, once again trying to open up the e file, or queen h5, hitting the pawn on f7 also I believe should be quite promising. I have the feeling that both of those moves are very good, and because we are getting low on time I'll just choose one of them. Which one should I choose? Queen h5, the point is that if knight f6 I have rook takes f6, bishop takes, and then because of the pin over the e file I have bishop takes d5. This should be quite good, but I might also have other good things. I'm not even mentioning that I have the option of sacrificing on f7 right now. For some reason I didn't consider this option at all, but now when looking at it, it also seems quite promising. Too many good options, too little time. That's a typical problem of a chess player. I'm really not sure what to choose. Trying to focus and calculate some lines. The time is running low. I have a very good feeling about the move rook takes f7, I really do. Should I do it? Should I do it? Yeah, okay, let's do it. See what happens. I might lose because of this, but we're also trying to have some fun here. And if we have some nice options like this, we might take advantage of this. What's the worst that could happen? Worst case, we will lose the game. It's not such a huge deal. We're trying to train, to learn, to entertain the viewers. So now if king takes, queen h5, king f8 is not forced, but the main point is I will have bishop takes d5 followed by knight e6. Once again, my feeling is that this should work, has to work, but once again, concrete lines might suggest otherwise. But what I'm definitely sure about, that it's much more difficult for black to defend such a position than for white to make some good attacking moves. Yeah, now my opponent is below 10 seconds, so it should be quite difficult for him now to find the moves. King d8, well, that's a very desperate move. That's not even trying to grab any material. This is just giving up, I believe, way too easily. Yeah, let's just take on d5. Yeah, I'm very surprised by this move. I mean, I believe black could have tried much harder to find some defensive resources. Now I'm just picking up material for no really good reason. So yeah, I think black is running out of time. Basically, I'm quite happy with this game. I think it was very entertaining. Let's take a quick look of the computer lines. So I think this is a critical moment. Yeah, so as you can see, the move rook takes f7 is the strongest move in the position, so I'm quite happy about it. A move before, the computer is suggesting that the move bishop d5 was a blunder, but even if it does the right move, as you can see, white has just an 2.5 advantage by the computer. Just a clear positional advantage with no really big kind of concessions that I did in order to get this. So let's see what would happen if he would have taken on f7. Now yeah, queen h5 check is what I wanted to do. Now this is the line that I've seen: king f8, bishop takes, let's say pawn takes, then knight e6. Yeah, and then because this diagonal is covered by the bishop, he is forced to give up his queen. And this is of course a very easy win with the queen up advantage plus the attack. I was not 100% sure what happens if he tries to do this intermediate move. Bishop takes e4, and now yeah, I have planned to do this intermediate move. Rook takes bishop, check. So he says queen takes, and yeah, this is the kind of position I've seen in my head. white is exchanged down at the moment for a pawn, but this rook is under attack, this pawn is going to fall. I'm actually quite surprised that computer evaluates this position as +8 almost. I would think it's a bit less than that, maybe, I don't know, +2 or 3, but apparently white just having a very concrete way to win from this position. Yes, I'm quite happy about finding the best move rook takes f7 right now. I am a bit disappointed that the opponent didn't play the move king takes f7, which would allow the game to end up in a bit more, let's say, spectacular way. He chose just to die almost with no counter chances. Yeah, so hope you enjoyed the game. I surely did. I'll see you in the next videos. Don't forget to subscribe and to put some comments below if you like this format, what kind of things you would like to see in this channel, which is kind of young, and I'm definitely open up to any ideas and suggestions. So thank you, people, and see you next time. Bye bye.